Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another amazing episode of the Over Sharon Show, the best darn show on the internet, as we call it. We have a guest today, but before we get into that, we're going to do something a little different. Sharon's going to read the quote today, and I'm going to pull the card. Sharon?
Well, I'm going to paraphrase because I don't know exactly the actual quote, but I believe it is said by Fortune de Saint Germain that we are here to learn lessons and we can learn them through suffering or through joy.
Yes.
So pick one or
exactly.
both.
And I'll pick one too. Ooh.
Those kind of look like I Ching cards or something. I don't know.
Yeah. It's the Six of Wands, I believe. Let me see if, hang on, I got an idea here. Let's be prepared.
Why don't you tell us what deck you're pulling from too?
This is from the Marseille Tarot, the old school one.
Wow.
Here. If I could.
And what is it? The Six of what?
I believe that's the Six of Wands. I think so. It's a six, right? Am I crazy? Or is that a four? Oh, it's no, yeah, it's the six.
Yeah.
And I think it's wands. I'm not exactly sure because it could be swords, but it does look more like wands or what they would call staves. And that's a great card. Sixes, they represent a movement back to balance after you go from the five, which is like an imbalance.
Chaos.
So, and the wands represent like fire and creation and stuff like that. So yeah, I like it. It's kind of, there's three of us, so we each get two now. So there's no scarcity, like everybody likes to say. There's no scarcity of wands around.
There is no scarcity. I was just thinking about that, a day or two ago. Like, it's just all fake.
Yeah. And, somebody who helped me see that was by listening to Crrow777. And amazingly enough, speaking of Crrow777, Sharon, why don't you introduce our guest?
Well, we have Rose777, Rose of Crrow777 on the show tonight. And I met Rose by sending her a DM. I messaged her because I had met Jason at the festival, the Bear Tarya Times National Festival. And I had told Jason that I wanted him on our show, and he was very obliged to join. So I had contacted him. And he hadn't responded, but I wasn't worried about that. I actually contacted Rose about something totally different. But then then I told her, oh, hey, I also just wanted to let you know that, I told Jason about the show. She's like, no, you should tell me because I'm the one who schedules him. I'm like, oh, well, then great. Perfect. So, and I wanted her on the show is what the reason I contacted her. So, so here she is. And, we're going to just get to know her tonight because, we want to know who this wonderful person is behind the Crrow777 show. She's the one who gets everything done. So without further ado, Rose.
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me on. It's great to be here. And it's really cool that you pulled the Six of Wands. Sometimes they call it the six batons. And as soon as I heard the word baton, like you don't hear baton very often, except maybe in this case. And then if you're doing one of those relay races where you're passing the baton, that's like the main time that I think of it. And then in 2017, I moved to Baton Rouge.
Oh, Baton Rouge.
That's what I thought when you pulled Six of Wands. I'm like, wands, oh, because then you said wands or swords. And I'm like, I think it's wands and Baton Rouge.
Baton Rouge.
Let me get into my weird accents that I can't stop, especially since you mentioned fortune. Now I'm holding back. Like, you know how Roger Rabbit, when he like shave and a haircut, he has to do the that. As soon as I hear fortune, I just want to speak in his voice.
His accent.
When I'm hearing his voice in my head, but apparently I have Dunning-Kruger with accents. So I might think that I can do like a really ghetto gangster accent, but I just can't get rid of the Valley Girl from California.
Oh my God, me either. And I'm not even from California. Oh my God.
True.
So, okay, well, tell us a little bit about that. Maybe like where you're from, where, how you met Jason and Crow, how you ended up moving to Baton Rouge. Yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so I'm from California. My parents were divorced when I was 4. So I was going back and forth between Woodland Hills, like the San Fernando Valley on the other side of the hill from where Malibu and Venice is. And then my mom and my stepdad were in Santa Barbara. And so when I was 12, I had to decide where was I going to be on the weekdays and where I was going to be on the weekends. So I picked Santa Barbara, obviously, which is just paradise. And I freaking loved it. I feel so lucky that I grew up where I did. I got my first job at McConnell's Ice Cream, which is off the Mission exit on the 101 freeway, if anyone wants to check it out. And so, yeah, I'm just a huge 805 fanatic. I played water polo in high school. I became a boxing instructor, like kind of out of high school for a little bit. I got sent away to bad girl boot camp, like how Ricky Lake used to talk about the bad girls who got sent away and handcuffed in the middle of the night. I literally got sent away to one of those boot camps. And that's how I even like found out that my parents had money, because growing up, it was all like another opening, that scarcity idea. And I have to mention episode 306 of Crrow777 Radio, which was the scarcity episode.
Thank you.
Like my parents just taught me, like, you have to work for every freaking thing that you have. And it was all about scarcity and like the idea, capitalism, like, in order for me to succeed, someone else has to die. You know what I mean? It's like, it's so hardcore, And so then when I'm like sent away and they're like giving me this brand new freaking backpack and like doing all this psychological warfare on me, making me take out my black hair tie only to give me another black hair tie, I'm like, this is some expensive shit I'm going through right now.
Wow.
So anyway, that, they shaped me up there. And
how old were you when you went there?
Huh?
How old were you when you went there?
17. They had 1 year left to save their daughter from the rebellious behavior.
Wow, I just wanted to throw in there. I was in the Marine Corps, so I went through boot camp at 18. So I hear you on that one. I'm sure it was similar psychological tactics going on.
It really affects you for the rest of your life when you get conditioned into just doing exactly what you're told, not just for your own benefit, but for the benefit of everybody around you. And that's what I also think is so funny about Crow, because he's like a perfect cross between whatever happened to his brain by being in the Marines and then being a hippie from San Diego. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A David Avocado Wolf type of hippie. Like, imagine if David Avocado Wolf, like, for some reason was in the Marines. I wonder what that would look like.
Yeah, I feel I'm very similar to that. If you talk to people who know me, I'm exactly that kind of same way. Everyone's like, you went to the Marines? Like, how were you in the Marines? I was like, oh, I nailed it. Like,
but then they think you're a hippie.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Look at me. Yeah.
And then you're like, heathen, not hippie.
Yeah, heathen, not hippie. And then they're like, what's the difference? And I'm like, I might shoot you.
Oh my gosh. Oh, if someone had asked me that question, I would say I'm a pagan in the mountains rather than a pagan, except I'm not actually on a mountain. So it's kind of conflicting because I want to be etymologically correct, but I also want to be rooted in reality. And don't even get me started about being a heathen, because Ben Balderson like blew my mind when he was here, like making me feel like I should never say I'm Jewish anymore, never make a joke about being Jewish, and stop believing that I'm Jewish too, and that I need to like get back to like my Slavic roots. Like from before Jesus and before Hebrewism, Hebraic stuff, and like that I feel really shitty about. Like I don't feel connected to the Hebrew or the Jewish religion. So like really all I feel connected to is like the negative behaviors of like my family that like traumatized me.
Wow.
Like why would I should be like grabbing antlers and meditating next to a tree.
Oh my gosh.
My eyes covered up like fucking Heilung, man.
Yes, exactly.
That's
Amen,
what I
sister.
He says that would probably solve like a lot of my issues if I just like stopped saying that I was Jewish. But then I told Jason about this, and he's like, that's freaking ridiculous. Like, you're so Jewish. You can't just like say that you're not Jewish just because Ben Balderson says stop doing that. But I feel like
it's a balance.
Yes, Sharon. We have to find the balance.
It's totally the balance, that's where your roots are, that's where you came from. And it's okay to acknowledge, okay, that's where I came from, but I don't identify with that. So I really like to look at my ancestry and look at the roots of that. Well, like Ben Balderson was saying, the ancestral stuff with the Slavic stuff.
Like I never liked the food. Nothing ever made sense to me. I liked having the upper hand knowing that Santa was fake, but that was just about it.
That's hilarious.
And now, like I've always loved metal. Like Ben and I have been into Manowar. Like I have always been into metal, but I never like took the lyrics seriously at all whatsoever. Like I thought it was funny. Like Dimmu Borgir, which is black metal, where they actually wear like the scary black and white makeup. Like I wouldn't think that that was satanic or against Christianity. I'd just be like, I'm really loving the fast beat and the complicated technical music, I never paid attention to the lyrics. Like I could seriously rap so many gangster raps from the 90s right now off the top of my head, which contained so many negative ideas. And at the time when I was being brainwashed by it, I didn't even know what I was talking about.
Right.
I wasn't paying attention.
Right.
So weird.
It is. You said, so you said you and Ben, do you mean Benjamin Balderson?
Yes.
Now, does he live around, I don't think he lives around there, does he?
No, but they took the train, which we're calling the meat grinder, aka train of death, because 2 people had to die in order for him to arrive here. I'm not even kidding. Down the coast to California, a semi truck tried to cross the tracks and they got hit, which delayed them for like 7 hours. And they had to replace like the computer on the track and obviously replace the conductor. This is protocol. You don't really want someone to stay on the job after that happens. And then they'd had the layover in LA. And then on the way to us in New Orleans, someone was like asleep on the tracks or committed suicide. So, which even further delayed it. So they were supposed to arrive at like 9:30 and they didn't get to us until like 9 a.m. the next day. Wow. And so they're in NorCal and we're on the North Shore of Lake Pontchartrain. So I told myself, I was like, I am so freaking lucky. Like how else, in what situation would Ben come all the way out here to hang out with us on the way up to Flattoberfest where Jason was giving his presentation?
Oh, that's why. Yeah. Cause okay. Yeah. He was going to come down and then you guys were going to go up to Flattoberfest.
Right. Cool. Ben gave his presentation and so did Jason. And it was awesome.
Gosh. I missed those. I don't know if they're available, but I haven't had a chance to check them out if they are. But I heard Ben's was really awesome.
Oh, yeah. He went over all of the information that he went over in the previous episode we just released with him. But the benefit is there's visuals. So that's why the Flattoberfest one would be great for everyone to check out. And I'm sorry, I didn't even answer your question. So I got sent to the military boot camp and then you know how it goes. You're not ready to go back to your environment. So I went to this halfway house in Montana where I was living with all these other people that were there for messed up reasons. And, there was like the mandatory AA meetings. And then I was going to the University of Montana and I was taking piano lessons from this woman whose house was purple and all she wore was purple and everything in her house was purple. And she looked and acted just like Ursula from The Little Mermaid. And I never said anything about it, but I was always thinking that. And then I got a job at the Bureau of Business and Economic Research. And so that was a pretty good thing. Like I was doing all these things and going to the gym and I really got my shit together. But then all they did was catch me with like a little bit of weed. And on spring break, they called my parents while I was in Santa Barbara and they're like, we found marijuana. She can't come back. And so like, then they just shipped my stuff back and my parents were like, no. I call my friends up and I'm like, I'm back. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just like here now.
Wow, so that's so crazy.
I know, but it was really hard to like have everything yanked out.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest lesson, actually, not the boot camp, but getting kicked out of the halfway house was a really big lesson because I had built so much and I thought I was in control again, and then I wasn't. So then I had my whole world turned upside down in 2016, about 14 years later. And I thought I had, like, I was working for a large corporation called Citrix Online, which then got bought out by LogMeIn. And I went back to school because I thought I should be like an elementary school teacher. And then I just saw that it was such BS with paperwork and, what to do if you find out that the kid is freaking homeless or there's cockroaches coming out of their Cheerios. And I'm like, I can't,
Yeah.
So then I just started trying acting. And then all of a sudden my spleen died. And so it was just everything had to stop again. But all in all, I just ended up in a lot of trouble. Just, you run into some people at some music festival and then everything falls apart. So that's when I ended up kind of like getting involved in the truth community. I discovered Mark Passio's natural law seminar from 2013 in Connecticut. And then I went to the Free Your Mind conference in 2016 and 2017. And then I moved in with Jason in Baton Rouge in 2017 and joined the team with him and Crrow. And I met Jason first. So it wasn't until after I was with Jason that I discovered who Crrow was and that I wanted to join the team and really help with this effort instead of starting my own podcast, which is what I was thinking of doing at the time. And that honestly probably would have just been me just parroting everything I ever heard from Mark Passio. I didn't do that. I had more to learn.
Yeah. Wow. We have a similar path in that because I also went to see Mark, but it was a little later because I came across that natural law seminar probably in 2018. And then I saw him in 2019 and I started because I was podcasting previously as a comedian and did all this stuff. So I had all the knowledge of how to do it, but then my message totally changed. And I feel like I was doing that a lot too with a lot of this natural law stuff. Not that it's bad, but like you said, there's more to learn, or just for some people, there's just more,
For sure. And also, it's just not right to parrot information. Like you have to like internalize it, understand the foundations, go through some life experiences and apply it. Because like I said, 2016, I went to the conference thinking like, oh, I figured it out. Fuck the government, And then I got 2 felonies on me. And I thought just by being innocent and just by, being a good person, that would protect me. And so just going through the experience of that and realizing like, oh, like being innocent and a nice person isn't enough to protect you in this world. Knowledge isn't enough. So kind of like what he goes into about like how wisdom is an action. It's like you taking the comprehension of that information and then acting accordingly. I didn't do that. So I got introduced to the information and then I applied it incorrectly. Everything fell apart. And then I had the whole, cliche rising through the ashes to become something greater thing.
Oh, wow. Yeah. No, that is really an important part that I think people miss. And you really have to, I guess, come from your own experience and just, it's like your own rhetoric because of what you've been through and the truth that you see. And everybody kind of has their own path. It reminds me of the Tao where they're like, it's better to fail on your own path instead of succeed on someone else's path.
Oh, it's so true. And a good metaphor is gardening. Like someone can tell you everything you need to know about how to grow a rose. And you can hear that, adding coffee grounds to it will work. But it's not until you actually grow a plant or cannabis is a good example too. You could smoke weed all day, every day, but it's not until you actually grow the plant. And I've never done it, so I'm totally being a hypocrite right now, but it's not until you grow the plant that I am told that you truly kind of commune with nature and really understand it. And it's totally not just about the healing effects or the psychoactive effects or whatever you think. You have to experience it to do it. And I know this is true because even my normie cousin who, I've smoked with throughout our lives, he's growing his plant now, but he doesn't even smoke anymore. So I was like, wow, that's so interesting that you're growing it now after all these years and you don't even smoke.
Oh, wow.
Just another tip that everyone, what they're saying is true, is that it's like a magical plant that's really great to observe growing. But I'm just so brainwashed. Like I'm still the little girl that got sent to boot camp from California. And now I'm in Louisiana and I don't want to ruin Jason's life. So I can't do it yet. And so it's our island in Jamaica, hopefully one day. Bertaria a la Jamaica. Like we have
Oh,
to like
let
have
me
our
know.
own. There needs to be a tropical island part of Bertaria where people can go and actually camp without having to bring two pairs of socks. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Maybe in Puerto Rico also. There's some bears there.
Yeah, and
Like
Kalina's there.
Kalina. Yeah, Jinx, you owe me a Coke, but
Yeah.
the Mexican kind with the real sugar.
Let's meet at Kalina's place in Templus Aquarius.
For sure. I would love to. I mean, I'm always telling her like it's just like my fantasy. I'm like, oh, we have to go. Oh, we have to go. I mean, just the other day, or even maybe even this morning, I was like, I have to be there right now.
Right? You
There
should
was
make a
a
plan.
weird thing out her window one night. Oh my gosh, I hope that it's okay with her that I say this, but really there was just like a really cool unidentified flying object out her window, a light that couldn't have been a
An
it could
orb?
not have been anything because there's no lights there because you know she's in the middle of nowhere. But then she started second guessing herself and she was like, maybe it was the moon, Rose. And I'm like, Kalina, you couldn't have like accidentally thought that the light was, you're just having cognitive dissonance because you don't
So,
want to accept there was something weird. But
right.
I don't know, maybe it was the moon, but I just feel like how could like the moon looks like the moon.
Yeah. Was it an orb? Was it nearby? I mean, was it far away? I wonder. Crazy.
I wonder, you guys should interview her and
Oh,
ask her.
yeah. No, we're going to have to have her on. Definitely. I told her that already.
Okay,
So,
good.
It's
But
amazing.
about this one particular story, just ask her like, so ever seen any UFOs? Not like Rose said that you had this experience because I don't want her to know that I like spilled the
Spill the
beans on
beans.
on national TV. I'm just kidding.
You spilled the
exactly.
beans on YouTube.
But see, this was my part of the show where I overshared.
Yeah,
Yeah. See?
exactly. I saw a shooting star the other night myself, and it was one of those that's they try to depict like in Disney, like where it has the falling stuff behind it. It was crazy. It was really wide too. It's like the biggest one I've ever seen. So yeah, there's some crazy stuff going on in them skies. I would suggest people to go outside and look up more.
Here in
Oh
Arizona,
yeah.
some people like a good week and a half ago, people were posting videos on Telegram of like this thing, like, and they're saying it's hitting the firmament. So then it looks like it's like it kind of looks like it's like doing this thing and leaving like a weird trail behind it. It was
Oh
very
wow.
interesting looking. If
I
I
have
find them, I'll send you the things, Rose.
okay,
This is
cool.
really interesting stuff.
I have a friend on Facebook named Justin Fedini who's part of the anarchist crew and he also likes to do comedy. And his one question for me that he always asks regarding flat earth and like questioning the globe is what are meteors? And that just made me think. I just thought of an answer that I'm going to send to him after this, which is what if meteors are actually like volcanic eruptions shooting up and not coming down? And it's just an optical illusion and it's hitting the firmament. And then after it hits the firmament, then it comes down. Or like some kind of energetic shooting up, like an electromagnetic shooting up from the ground. And then once it hits the firmament, then it's something that comes into physical manifestation and falls down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many possibilities of what it can be, but I would suggest. So I came up with this basically foolproof logic way to defeat any. It defeats round ball Earth. It defeats flat Earth if you think it's a physical realm with a dome. It
or
also
anything
defeats
else.
yeah, or and it also
Hollow. What do they do? Hollow
oh
Earth.
Hollow Earth, yeah, but it also defeats what's the other one? Simulation theory. Because I'm a realm earther, and all those ones I just mentioned before have their roots in materialism. So if you're talking to somebody who's spiritual, you could just say, I thought you were anti-materialism, but you believe we live on a material thing, like,
This
Oh, I
world
and
love
is
it's a
it.
joke too. Yeah. And then people, because I'm a realm guy. So I say realm because it doesn't hit people the way it does when you say you're a flat earther, because they just
Mhm.
think I'm like hippie or something. And, it's
Yeah.
so funny. It doesn't cause that same division. And we talk about that on our
Yeah.
show all the time, all these different lines of division. And I know you guys are well aware of them. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I love the term geometric agnostic. I had a show that was pretty big. I have to say, it was like really. I was loving it. It was called the Poppycock Report, and I started it in 2020. and I was at 8
I
a.m.
remember
on a
that you were
Tuesday.
doing that.
Yeah, I've listened to a couple of those. Yeah.
You did? Oh, okay, because I thought
Hmm.
it was like long forgotten and that it would become like part of the Tartarian narrative in like 200 years.
Who could have made this show? She must have been an alien.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that just made me laugh so hard that I forgot even why I brought up the poppycock report. What were you saying before that? Oh
You
yeah.
had a show. Go ahead.
Realm Earth.
Oh yes.
Up.
So geometric agnostic is something that we would say, but then after a couple of months, after March of 2020 started, I really wanted to drive it home to absolutely everyone around me in my life, on the internet, that I wasn't falling for poppycock. And so I wanted to, I put the label against all the advice of Crow and Jason and like people that I know who are smarter than me, of flat earther on, because I just felt like what better way to show that never going to wear a mask and or do the thing that
The thing. You know,
so,
the thing.
so I just really like that, and I felt good about that, and I also like that explanation because then it also takes the edge off of the division where I really am truly open-minded. I pretty much am like what you described, a realm earther. Like we are here in, like Jason says, schoolhouse earth, where we're just like learning and trying not to make the same mistakes over.
The school of rock. I mean, the school of earth.
School of rock too. We are here to rock. I truly believe that as well.
Yes.
I mean, if you're not headbanging, then why are you here?
If
Just
you
don't
haven't seen
bang your head on the
Pantera
wall.
with Dimebag, I mean, who are you even? Because I've seen Pantera in 1993, I think it was, when New York City. Anyway,
Oh, R.I.P. Dimebag.
yeah. Oh,
It's just a
what a loss.
shame.
Yeah. He's probably on an island on the other side of Antarctica or whatever people talk about.
I hope so with Dio, because I really feel like Dio should have known how to cure his cancer. And I also feel that about Norm Macdonald too. Like, wouldn't if someone explained to them what to do? Of course, what I'm saying here is totally offensive because there are so many people out there that know all of the things to do and they still died of cancer. But, like for example, Austin Walters' wife, Christy, passed away from cervical cancer, and they did the Gerson method.
Mm.
And the Gerson method doesn't help the kind of cancer that she had, something having to do with sugar in the fruits. So that was just, can you even imagine how annoying that would be? And then another thing, and this is like totally everybody's choice, but I'm just like saying stuff. There's just like things that you could try. Like, I think if I was seriously on my deathbed dying of cancer, maybe I would try urine therapy. Some people, they know about urine therapy, but they don't try it. And then there's like also the RSO oil. Like some people, they will have like a whole entire tube of RSO, but they just like do not like that feeling of being high. And so they just won't even try it. And Jason, he's one of those people where if he like accidentally had a weed cookie, he'd probably want to go to the hospital. But
would
like,
he get paranoid, do you think?
Oh yeah, he would just feel horrible anxiety, like he was going to die and just like the worst. And so, but if he had a serious illness that he wanted to cure, he would, stick it out
Go
and
through with
still
that. Yeah.
take the cannabis oil full spectrum with the THC and everything. So everyone has their own, like line that they will or will not cross. But I've heard about the most miraculous things, like people putting DMSO on their scar like over and over and over again, and it hurts so much. It reminds me of that Fight Club scene, where they put the stuff on the hand and he has to like sit there for a while before they pour the stuff on it to neutralize it.
Yeah.
So I was doing that for a while with a scar, and I'm like just constantly rubbing the DMSO all by itself on it. I'm like, I don't even care if I have the scar or not. I'm done with this experiment.
Right. Like, I don't really care that much. It's just
Yeah.
a scar.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see if it would work.
Right. Well, I've been looking into, I don't know if you've heard of Eileen McCusick. You probably have, right? Was she on Crow?
Yes, episode 229 of Crrow777 Radio, and we were introduced to her by Dr. Andy Kaufman, who's friends with her. So it was around like episode 207 that he started telling us about the biofield tuning forks and the sonic slider. So Jason and I, we like looked at her website and her story and everything. And then, when we heard about or we saw the before and after pictures, we were like, wow, there's really got to be something to this.
Yeah.
So we got that sonic slider, and it's part of our, life extension technology.
Yeah, exactly. I have one too.
And
But
so
like
do
what
I.
Yay.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
What no, you're fine. What I wanted to say is that some people perhaps there's an attachment because some disease is not just a manifestation of the physical, but also a manifestation of the spiritual, of the emotional wounds that you haven't necessarily healed. And some people have healed from things like that just by going through. I mean, of course, if it's advanced, right? Like cancer, like it's really advanced, that whatever that wound is might be really deep, and it might, maybe the sound healing is not necessarily going to work right away or whatever. But I think that a lot of things like that, like if you say like, oh, somebody tried the Gerson method, but it didn't help them, maybe it was tied to like an emotional wound that never got healed, right? I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Oh yeah, okay, I was just making sure I wasn't muted. Yes. And that's the thing about cancer is that like, have you noticed that all the people who get cancer and die from it are just like the nicest people that you've ever met? And so just giving of their energy, and it just seems like it's like emotionally energetic.
Yeah.
That there's some kind, and it's like that with German new medicine. People talk about that, and so I think that your energetic chakras, which has been proven as an actual electromagnetic, it's not metaphysical, it's actually physical. Like you can measure chakras.
Wow.
So, and also, who was the other? Ross of Conscious Technologies. That was another episode I want to recommend that we did recently with the just amazing technology. Unfortunately, it's really expensive, so I haven't gotten one. One of them is like $6,000, but you learn about it, and it's just like, wow, if someone has a healing center in, like, anybody out there who has like a medical spa in Arizona, you know that they exist out there in Sedona.
Oh yeah.
Get one of these from Conscious Technologies. Like it will be so helpful to humanity, and then many people can all benefit from that expensive.
What episode was that?
Yeah, actually, I can't believe that I don't have this one memorized.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
Yeah, but while I'm looking this up, I had this really interesting conversation with Andy Kaufman on a Rockfin stream where I told him that you know how in this truth community, you're totally a baby truther if you use your microwave. It's just like, oh, unheard of. How could you do such a thing? Like, call CPS. So hold on, wait, free episodes. Here we just click Ross and see if it comes up. Okay, so Eileen said about the microwave that, she can just use the power of her mind. By the way, that's 442 cymatics. Everything vibrates. And today we cover good vibrations with Ross Newkirk. So Eileen was like, well, I'll just, will the positive energy away. Like, my
Exactly.
EMF is stronger than the microwave's EMF.
Exactly.
And so when I challenged Andy with that, I'm like, so Andy, can I use the microwave with my powerful positivity
Yes.
and overcome it? And he's like, but isn't that just kind of a waste of your energy? And I was like, oh, good point. And I mean, do we have an infinite amount of energy to expend? Because I can tell you that dealing with normies, I can like feel myself draining. I do think I have a finite amount of like energy per capita of like sun positioning per day, but who knows? Maybe it is infinite.
It might be, and we just need to learn how to tap into. Yeah, let's put the allegedly hat on right now.
So I love what you're saying right now, because I feel that, I'm one of these crazy people, but I put my allegedly hat on. Of course, obviously, YouTube, we're not giving medical advice. It's a comedy show, right? But anyway, I feel like it really works on your belief, and you could find different tokens, right, of belief, like this beautiful peach moonstone with a skull and a crow on top, and you could
Crow.
Exactly. What a synchronicity. And also synchronicity that Sharon and I have actually met in Sedona, Arizona. We met up there with a bunch of people earlier this year. So yeah, Sedona is definitely on the mind. But what I was saying is people use these talisman. It could even be some kind of medication. And I'm not saying it doesn't also have healing properties, but this thing that they believe, whatever it is, if they believe it wholeheartedly, then as they're taking it, they feel themselves getting better, and they have that feeling of it. Therefore, I believe that's how this realm works, whatever you could feel like that, kind of like they say in that book, The Secret, although that there's a lot of gravel in there, but there is some truth. I feel like if you want to garner an audience, you have to use a little bit of truth or half truth or something. But you can use whatever it is to heal yourself because you get that feeling or whatever, however it works, this crazy realm. And that's actually what heals people. And then to the point about the microwave, I like what he's saying, but I like what you're saying more because I feel that, yeah, you can have on one level, there's an energy that you have when you're dealing with people. So like if you're an introvert and you're out there like I was as a comedian, you can be an extrovert, but you expend energy. So that's one level, right? But I think what you're talking about is more with the belief. So if you believe that microwave isn't going to harm you, that, you have no power, you have no power here. If you have that attitude, you're not really expending energy, but it's still working in your favor. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man, I'm totally with you. And just talking about it and bringing it up makes me feel good because nobody talks about this stuff because everyone always just wants to be so black and white, like, oh, this is
Yes.
bad, this is good. But I like thought experiments and I like the
Yes.
abstract. Um,
Yes.
and when you think in the abstract, it can kind of like open the door for people to kind of express their thoughts and then come to a more common understanding, which is why I liked the Woody Ewar episode that we
Yeah.
did where they were talking about how they had done their research on certain things and then changed their minds. And then so I got to hear
Right.
both sides of the story after that from so many different emails. I ended up in hour-long conversations with all these different people. And, talking to Eddie Bravo about Tartaria and how into John Levi he is, and talking to my friend Jen Santel and how into melted buildings she is. And then recently we were doing the True Earth conference with Jaron, and David Murphy was using Ewar's previous research that he no longer agrees with in his presentation. And so it is just such a great opportunity to provoke so much conversation. And like one thing's for sure that I just don't want people to ever forget is that we could all agree that kitties are cute and there are pictures of ancient ruins that are trippy and like nobody knows what they are. So why can't we just have fun talking about it? And I just want to give a shout out to Caleb from TikTok, who I call my mini me. And I kind of I introduced him to Crow and I'm like, dude, like, I know you're busy and I know life is crazy, but this is someone out there who's asking for a teacher and you're the one, like, let him be your apprentice. And so he's like reading all the books, Light of Egypt, Devil's Pulpit, sending me little messages on Telegram being like, the education system failed me and I need to expand my vocabulary. He's only 24 years old and he's stressed out that, he's not doing it right. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Isn't that
Wow.
crazy?
No idea how ahead of the game you are. And
Yeah.
so now he's already has his own podcast with like a free hour and a full hour on a decentralized platform to like migrate his audience off TikTok, which I think is so awesome. And he's learning so much. So about that next generation, we have had so many guests on Crrow777 Radio of families that have had home births and that are not, poisoning their children and just offering them just like a world of abundance versus scarcity, like we were talking about before, which I was explaining before, like the way I was screwed up mentally because of that fear-based raising, like you have to win and it's all competition. Like it's so cool. There's grounded extracts, there's Tippecanoe herbs. So there's a couple babies. Then there's John and Summer from episode 403.5. It's so cool because you look at these pictures of these babies and watch them grow up and you think, oh my gosh, in only 10 years, I mean, they're going to have their own thoughts and opinions. And I just can't wait for these kids to start speaking English so I can learn from them and find out what they have to say about all this shit that they've been observing,
Yeah, I have a friend who has a son who's 8 who's like beating everybody in chess. I haven't played him yet, but it's amazing. The conversations I even had with him when he was like 6, I was like, I can't wait till you grow up. Yeah, I think it's amazing. And you guys also had Family Fun Guy on, and we had him James on recently, and he talked about that as well, his wife and him. Yeah, I think that people who have home births are like my heroes.
We
Yeah,
have a friend, Adam, who also had a home birth.
Sorry, I forgot them.
Oh no.
Yeah. Yeah. We also have a friend, Adam, who's been on our show, and he did that some time ago. Like I think around the time you guys were doing one of your first episodes on home birth, our friend Adam did that. He's awesome.
There's actually so many other people who have been guests on the show that didn't have a bare name, or like for example, the Rammed Earth guy, Max Stadnick, I know he, and then Christopher Gardner. Why didn't I mention him too? Like, there's too many guests to mention. But Family Fungi, awesome. Like, they're here in Louisiana, and we actually hang out with them in person. So I like wasn't thinking of, they weren't on like the digital football field in my brain when I was scanning, because they're like.
Well, I'm going to plug our show
as well.
Yeah, Sharon met them at the festival, and I'm going to plug the show that we did with James from Family Fun Guy. Just last week, we released it, and the amount of gravy that he was just spitting out was amazing. I mean, it was like next level. And he's young, right?
He's really young. He's like 29 or 30 or something.
Yeah.
They look like the same quality of skin as their children.
Exactly. And people like
elasticity.
Yeah, exactly. And people like that, I tell them, because I'm 46 allegedly, and I'll tell people like in their 20s, I talk to a lot of people, bears and all this stuff, and I'm always like, listen, you just have to acknowledge the fact that you're so young and you're already onto this. Like, you're doing fine, kid. Like, like, don't stress out, because a lot of them are always like, I got to be doing more. And I'm like, listen, you're so far ahead of it. Just take a lap for a second, take a breath, like.
So you look really young in the same way that Jason looks really young. Jason's 49. And so, okay, I don't know what it is, but there's just certain like people that just don't seem to age. Do you did you party hard when you were younger?
See, I joined the Marine Corps, so I drank pretty heavily the first 2 years of that, but then I kind of got sick of it. Okay. And then when I got out of the Marines, I didn't even start smoking weed again until I did comedy. I was like 36. So I would just drink on and off with friends, go out and have a couple. I was never a big drinker. Like, I didn't like to go to the bar and hang out and stuff. So I grew up in a party environment, like I like to say I was raised by wolves. So as I got out, I was just like, I'm kind of over that. So, but I also been trying to eat healthy, whatever the hell that means. Like, it's shifted, but I think I figured out something pretty well. But I do feel like I'm going in reverse. I feel also like a lot of it has to do with just the spirituality and stuff I've been looking into. But I also want to say that I'm 6'5". It's hard to tell on here. So I'm like, and I gained an inch. I wrote this in a letter to Owen that he read, and I'm so excited about it. Since 2018, because I used to be 6'4" my whole life. Now I'm 6'5", and I've had it verified. And I wrote it in a letter to Owen, and I told him it was his N-word jokes. I don't want to say it on YouTube. I'm like, N-word jokes made me taller. And he's like, yeah, it was funny.
Oh my gosh, that is fascinating. Do you think that your bones actually grew, or do you think that maybe your spirituality like affected your confidence, which then affected your posture?
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with that, because I've been doing a lot of stretching, standing up straight. So I think somehow I just decompressed an inch, because before I'd have to like go back and try to get measured. So it just came, and I'm hoping to decompress some more. You never know,
Yeah.
Grow another inch next year.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's possible, right? Anything's possible.
Who knows?
I'm going to try and grow another extremity by next year. We'll see if I could. We're going to see how far mental fortitude can take me.
I was just talking about that. Yesterday, the day before with friends. Oh, yesterday. And I was like, remember the movie The Swamp Thing where he grows an arm? I'm like, I wonder if it's possible for people to grow limbs, You never know.
Why not? I've heard that it's possible.
What do you think of the mentality that they have in India, where when someone's born with a bunch of different extra arms and heads, that they're like a reincarnated god? What do you think of that? Do you think it's just a misguided, something to explain it away? Or do you think it's just an ancient knowing that maybe there's something to it? I always thought it was a little bit cruel. Like, take them off the pedestal and let them chill. Because a lot, like, I see videos of them where like they're just sitting there and people are in line waiting to like give them rose petals and stuff. It's like, do they want to be doing that right there?
Yeah, that sounds more like some form of idolatry, perhaps,
Like the Dalai Lama, like you're born like that, and so now you just have to like live that life. But maybe it's not all of them. Maybe the ones that have money, they just have the extra limbs chopped off at the beginning, like they do here in America, and they go on. And so it's really just the poor kids that couldn't get the extra fingers chopped off. And I don't even know why I'm like being so Western with like the chopping off. Like maybe people should be chopping off their extra fingers. But that's another thing that you see in like the Amish. People are always saying that like, oh, look how healthy they are. But they do have the extra finger thing going on all the time. At 60.
Really?
Yeah, that's the one thing about the Amish that is recurring. It's a
I did not know
recurring
that.
gene. Yeah.
I've
Call it
also heard
polydactyly or something.
I've also heard claims of uh abuse, like child abuse kind of stuff. I don't want to say exactly, but the guys in the sewers. But yeah, I don't know if that's true exactly, but I heard some parts of them run like an actual mafia, like it's nuts.
The
But
Amish?
yeah, it could be speculation though.
Whoa,
But
maybe
I've heard it from
it's
people in
so
Pennsylvania that are like
Amish.
close to them. They said some of them
Pennsylvania
are,
Amish.
yeah.
Well, I know a lot of people in the Amish land, and in the area where the Amish are is also where a lot of like rich politicians and wealthy people are. So maybe there's a crypto Amish community where they're pretending to be Amish, but really it's just a cover for their political behaviors and
Yeah.
other weird stuff.
Well, I mean, it's very culty, so that would make sense.
It would be hard to pull off, though, like your cover not involving you just never using electricity. It would be really hard to pull off a conspiracy as an Amish person. I would actually have to hand it to them. They do it by like letters in Braille or something, their own kind of Braille. That would be a
Wow.
good idea. I'm so ready to start my own cult.
That would be such dedication to not have electricity just to remain undercover. It's got to be a pretty simple life, though. I mean, if you were more monk-like or more, it's probably got to be pretty fulfilling. But it's crazy, though, knowing that like Babylon exists, that choice. It's nuts.
Maybe that's the real ending of Goodfellas. And Ray Liotta didn't go to a suburb, but he's just without electricity, so he can't be tempted to make Facebook in 15 years later.
Oh, I love that.
Be status like he would have been like, that day in the mafia, he would have been so just like one day he would have taken an extra Ambien and on his, in his 80s and it would be all over. So you'd have to send like Tupac and Elvis and David Bowie and all these people to the Amish. If they didn't want to go to Epstein Island, is what I'm saying.
Oh my God.
Thug Life Amish. I could just see Tupac as Amish. That'd be hilarious.
Right?
Speaking
But
of gangster rap,
killed, like all these people who are like leaving the beast system, they probably are like, all right, wow, this isn't that bad. I'm really glad that on the other side of Antarctica, I'm growing squash and beans and what's the other third one? I always forget. The Three
corn,
Sisters.
corn.
Corn, yes. Yes. Corn, beans, and squash.
Yeah, they do that here a lot. I'm in New England. I'm in Connecticut.
Right. So definitely they would be doing that there. That's where it came, that's where the idea is. That's what you picture when you talk about that. You're picturing whatever they're teaching you in like the 5th grade about Thanksgiving, that area.
Thanksgiving. I was going to say Thanksgiving too.
I'm going to a Friendsgiving tomorrow for the Bears, Ukrainian Bears hosting it. I'm super excited about it. So
By the time this airs, though, that will have happened.
yeah, that will have happened.
What's the date? Because our bear Friendsgiving in Louisiana is, I think, December 10th.
Oh, this one is
it's after. Okay.
This one's the 17th of November. It's actually tomorrow in real time.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Now I'm paranoid because that is after, but there must be a reason why I said that. There must be.
Maybe they're meshing the Christmas and the Thanksgiving together.
Could
Maybe.
be. Yeah.
Yeah, those events are amazing. Every time I go to one, I love them. You guys been to some bear meetups, right?
Oh, heck yes.
Yay.
Absolutely.
With family fungi, your friends.
Yes, yes. And also Bra Bear, Bra Bear?
I don't think I know.
Okay.
Bra Bear.
It's amazing. Like they live 10 minutes away from us. It's incredible. And we've discovered how close they were. It's like, wow, this is just a dream come true.
That's
And
awesome.
then the big Sib, he doesn't have a bear name, but he's a recurring guest on Crrow777 Radio, helps a lot of people with law. And
He's another Brandon.
Huh?
Brandon
Another
Sibley.
Brandon.
He's another Brandon.
Yeah, another Brandon. So that Brandon has shown up too. We invited him. And it's just such a great time. There's just so many different people that also have, they're just growing so much food. There's just so much abundance around here.
Must be
Abundance.
nice to have those kind of bear meetups. But we have some legends at our meetups too. It's so much fun. I really highly recommend anyone listening to this. If you haven't been to one, what are you waiting for?
Wouldn't it be cool if we had a monorail around the nation? Because I want to go to Tippecanoe Herbs, their shop, their brick and mortar shop.
In like Minnesota, or where are they at?
Milwaukee.
Milwaukee. Where's that? Wisconsin. Sorry.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
They're close.
One of those lake states up
One
there.
of those northern freezing states.
Like the only time when you would get an M and a W mixed up is like mix up Michigan and W. It's like, wait,
As
why?
I said, because it was Milwaukee and I got it mixed up with Minnesota.
Yes. Why are all these words like dyslexic with each other? It's another conspiracy we've uncovered.
It
Yeah.
is. It's that green language.
I have
Dylan
a
Sakosho's book.
the word supposedly, which is spelled with a D, right? We all agree, right?
And then supposedly.
Okay, so I've been trying to get down to the bottom of this. Why do people say supposedly? Because so many people do it that there has to be like something that happened somewhere. And so I finally came
Like a
up,
Mandela. I'm just kidding.
yeah. I had to like do Occam's razor. And so I think to myself, what happened was there are people in the world who are dyslexic and they are actually seeing a bee. And all it takes is a few parents to say suppose it, I don't even want to repeat it in front of their kids. And then that kid's going to grow up and it's just like any accent where by default they want to say it and it comes out and they don't care because they heard someone who was an authority in their life do it. So that's my explanation of why people say supposedly the wrong way.
Yeah. It's funny. I've been thinking about that for a few years, the whole mix up of that word. It's just funny. But good. That's a really good conjecture.
Yeah,
Yes,
like that.
we're conjecturing here.
It reminds
Yeah,
me
we
of the
always do.
Mandela, and we've talked about that a lot on our show, where we believe there's like a lot of these side things that happen, like commercials or whatever, that people will remember.
They
And
don't
that,
realize, they don't connect them to the original.
yeah. And then we were talking about how it's possible somehow that if you got the entire collective consciousness or most of it to believe something because of the way the realm works, could it be that it actually changes it? Like, so like the DVD in your case actually changes because of the belief in the way this works. Cause like I try to talk about realm earth and I say how I think we're energy somehow. We're having this physical experience. We're tricked into it somehow to think it's physical, but really at the end of the day, we're some form of energy. And I think that's why like sound healing and all this stuff has the different effects that it has. So if that was the case, then wait, did I just lose my point? Where was I going, Sharon?
I don't know, but you made me think of the Law of One in A Course in Miracles, and I'm going to ask Rose about that in a minute.
So realm earth and yeah, so the whole belief, right? So Mandela. So is it possible that the collective consciousness, if they all believe something or most of them do, it could somehow change it? I just think it's very rare. I don't think it happens a lot, but it could be possible that maybe that's how it changes. But I don't think it's Field of Dreams or like the Berenstain Bears. I think that's just everybody misremembering stuff, but I think it could be possible on some level with certain things, but then again, that's crazy talk. So I'll take my hat off now. But yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I love Brian Staveley, and he is like the Mandela effect expert, and he can just rattle off all of them. And so I've done like 5-hour streams with him on my channels that are now deleted, but and then also on the channel now. But and so a lot of them is like the spelling stuff. For example, I'm not affected by dilemma, and then I've never even seen the James Bond one with the Dolly's braces, but I love it because it doesn't make sense to me, even though I haven't seen the film. The way the story is told to me, it doesn't make sense that she wouldn't also have braces like the other character. So it's just like these little things, but it's nothing that really gets me. But also like the placement of the kidneys is supposed to be a Mandela effect, and
the placement of the heart as well.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, they say put your hand over your heart with that hand and then out, and the heart's really in the center. But that's another one I'm not affected by because just growing up with my stepdad being a surgeon as far back as I can remember, I just always remember the heart being in the center. So there's a lot of Mandela effects that don't affect me. I also have been really affected by I feel like I could remember Desi Arnaz himself saying, Lucy, you got some splaining to do. But I also could remember seeing them make fun of it on Mad TV. And
Right.
so it's just, I don't know. It's really hard to figure out the Mandela effect now. But what you said about, is it possible for everybody's consciousness and belief to alter reality? Well, to me, that sounds like a fancy way of just describing a miracle, right? Like someone who is like lifted from the dead, or they're not blind anymore. Like that's a shift in reality. That sounds pretty useful, more useful than like removing the from the Eagles or adding the. So if it's true, or like just the idea, like the Pentecostals in the church, like there's something going on, like something is possessing them. Like when people all get together and they're praying together and focusing on something, like, yeah, maybe it's possible.
I've seen it.
I haven't. Tell me about you seeing it. I love it. Tell me.
So I got wrapped up in some Pentecostal stuff when I was in about fourth, fifth, sixth grade, I'd say. And because of my level of like, I was more like a young adult. It was really weird. I was always, I don't know, kind of like intelligent and could have conversations with adults or whatever. So I got into this Jesus stuff like really good. And I read a lot of the Bible, and I would, meet with a lot of in the Bible study, like the adult Bible study. I'd be in there like at 11. So I got really into it, and we would go to these, I think she was Grace was her name, Grace Fellowship or something like that. And they would actually heal people. So they'd have people speaking in tongues and putting their hands up, and people would come down. Now, I think some of it might've been a scam. Like I think some of it, like when Owen, which I love, that's how me and Sharon got together, by the way, if you're not sure, is because we're both bears. But how Owen talks about people in wheelchairs that don't really need to be in wheelchairs, and then they could stand up because they're healed, but they're probably just in a wheelchair for attention or whatever. And again, not to judge anybody, but so I've seen that, but I've also seen like tumors go down. Like it was crazy. Like somebody I knew had a tumor and it went away. So I think that somehow belief or whatever, it could still be used, even if there's lies around it or whatever, not to offend any Pentecostals who might be watching. Just kidding. Yeah, I think that it totally can work like that. So you haven't seen anything like that, you said? Because I've seen people speak in tongues, like people I knew that I know they didn't know this language. They all of a sudden just get up and just speak this clear language. It's nuts. That is like totally foreign.
Oh, I have seen people speak in tongues. I guess that's the closest thing I could say to seeing anything that, see, I really just like want a ghost to just show up in front of me, like a full-blown apparition, or just like an image of Jesus in a dream even would be lovely, which is pretty common. I've heard so many people. And why does the image of Jesus have to come to people finally after a parent passes away? Like, why does a parent have to die in order for someone to find Jesus? And you'd think that after me trying to find Jesus, only because I want it, even if it's just to have a Jesus phase, like, I don't care. Like, I should have been rewarded for not getting bat mitzvahed, or maybe it's like the total opposite of what Ben Balderson was saying. And I won't find Jesus unless I, do go and do the Hebrew school and learn about his supposed alleged language. I don't know. We're conjecturing, we're oversharing and conjecturing here. But no, I haven't had any kind of metaphysical experience except a couple of people who, like in a rune reading or a medical medium, have said names of people, or that certain people were there watching over me. So that's really cool. But it's not a firsthand experience. It's basically, oh, good for you. I wish I had that. Why can't they come straight to me? Why does it have to be through this other person that this communication is occurring? And then it makes me feel really insecure about myself, like I'm not spiritually adept, or there's something wrong with me, that my spiritual antenna is broken. However, maybe for whatever reason, I'm meant to be here and just have all of these really physical body material experience, and I will totally have plenty of time after this life to experience that other side of things, because I did try very hard to interface with the spiritual realm using like different plant medicines and stuff, and they just don't work. Period. And
For you,
LSD,
right?
synthetic
Yeah.
for me. I don't hallucinate. I can't leave the realm for a otherworldly experience. And then there are other people who don't even need a plant medicine, and they could see a crack in the whatever, like the universe, that they could like see like a crack, even if they're just in the grocery store, a crack in like lights, the brightest light you could ever even imagine shining through. And to me, that's like, all right, maybe 15 years ago, I would say that person needs to be on medication. You can't go around this world just seeing the universe cracking in front of you. How are you going to function?
Get him on the Prozac.
Exactly.
I can tell you.
Lithium.
Yeah.
I can resonate with you, Rose, because I also grew up in a way where I did not encounter things like apparitions or spirits or even paranormal activity, but I was around it in a sense because I grew up in like a culty type of church too, where it was kind of Pentecostal adjacent, and they would regularly pray for people and stuff like that. And I think we've talked about this in a previous show, an older show. But my mom and dad were like deacons, and they would go around and pray for people. And these people would like heal of things. And they were always like so gracious to my parents for praying for them. Like some people were like, I tried to have kids. Like I was sterile. I could not have kids. Your parents came and prayed for me. And they have their one miracle baby, and they're just like, your dad prayed for me, and so it's like, I don't know how those things happen, but I think definitely there is intention and the power of belief going on in there. Like, even if it's that person's own power of their own belief in like, okay, this man has prayed for so many people and they heal, so I'm going to be healed too. And I'm going to be able to have a baby, whatever it is. Right. But just going
where if you're an orphan, or if people adopt a baby because they can't have a baby, like 5 seconds later they get pregnant, and it happens over and over again where they can't get pregnant until after they've adopted another baby.
That's crazy. Yeah. But as far as like seeing things and stuff, I never saw them. But my mom was one to be like, I dreamt this and then it happens, and having just really interesting paranormal things happen in her life. And she would tell me about them. And I don't disbelieve her. I'm just like, that's cool, but I've never had something like that happen to me. But in the realm of like, quote, psychedelics, and we talked about this in some episodes we did about drugs and things like that. I did try when Brandon and our friends, we went up to Sedona earlier this year, and we did try that. And I did experience like going into a different realm, and it was a very, very interesting and I would say amazing experience. But the funny part is that I trying to smoke weed or joints and stuff like that. I don't like, for whatever reason, it hasn't done anything to me. Like if I do the gummies and stuff, I feel the effects, but they're not comfortable necessarily. I don't really enjoy the effects of them. So I just decided I'm not going to use them. But I literally tried to smoke people's joints one night at a friend's party. What was it? Like maybe a year ago. Yeah. And, nothing. I'm just like, I don't know why, but
you tried a few times, didn't you? Like at different, because some people say, oh, you don't get high your first time or whatever, but you've tried on several different occasions.
After that, I tried again.
Yeah.
At another person's house. Just nothing. I was like, okay, I guess it's not my medicine, So.
And my funny retort was that Sharon's just high all the time. Like she already exists in that realm.
Yeah. I'm already in that realm.
We're already tripping, Sharon.
Yeah, that's already, already tripping.
And Rose is already tripping too, so you don't need a girl.
Exactly, I'm already tripping. And honestly, I feel like listening to Rachmaninoff, like the third concerto, that is like the most. That's like, my Molly. It's like super warm and fuzzy vibes where it's just like, whoa, I can't believe someone came, like, read my mind before I was born and made me
Ooh.
feel like an accentuation of all these feelings. I even felt like I don't even know what I was on. Maybe I was stoned, but the movie. Remember, you said School of Rock. That movie with Jack Black. That was actually really good, wasn't it?
It was
I
a
think
good movie.
I got good warm fuzzy vibes just from seeing
Yes.
children playing instruments together. Like
Yes.
that's all
It
I
was very
need.
sweet. I liked it.
Yeah, and another thing to say about that movie, because I'm a DJ and right now I do a lot of weddings, but even at weddings people ask for that song and I could see how that movie inspired people to become musicians, it's amazing.
That's good to know because I
Yeah.
remember how old that was so long ago. It's been forever. The last time I saw a movie that's new and not from like the 90s or the very, very early 2000s was when Matt Landman recommended to Jason and I something from 2013 called Snowpiercer. And I lasted 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I was gone out of the room, couldn't handle it. I was like, oh my gosh, the occult mockery, the elitist mentality, the symbolism, the hierarchical BS, and I just like it made me feel physically ill, which is what kind of brings us back to what we were talking about before about miracles and healings and how does all this work. And then it's like, there's the whole idea of the placebo, which is a proven thing that even medical science doesn't deny it. So
Absolutely.
that's why when something doesn't work, I just wonder, like, is this my fault? And I'm like, before I try to take, like the Tippecanoe herbs really helped me a lot. And I think it was just like, I had so much love in my heart for the people that made it. I think that I should really only be eating food and taking medicines that are like grown or created by people that I love. And then that's the best medicine of all.
That's amazing. I love that. That's really awesome.
Can't say that you could do it 100% of the time, but it would be nice, right? Some good goat soap here, some lettuce there, some chives there, and we just do the best we can.
Yeah, no, we have to just do the best we can
Are you
as a
guys
whole.
guilty of the same thing I am, which is that like you buy a supplement and like you'll take it for a couple of days and then like it just kind of stays on the shelf and you like appreciate it and you just was like, can I kind of reap your benefits by just appreciating you and without remembering to open up the bottle and take the pills?
Yeah, so much so. And but you know what that makes me think of too is kinesiology and like muscle testing. And isn't that something that Fortune Saint Germain does? Does he do that? Or did he do that?
Absolutely. Multiple guests of the show. See, biomagnetism has a lot to do with muscle texting. It's how you ask the body in order to determine what magnets are needed. Then someone like Dr. Binder, who's also a chiropractor, and he was the first medical doctor to win a lawsuit against a damaged person in 1974. So he's out of muscle testing, and he did muscle testing with me over the phone. And in his opinion, he thinks I have a hiatal hernia. But then I went to go try and get checked, and I don't know why, but every time I try to go to Western medicine, ever since 2020, when I made this like spiritual, like I
Shift.
said, I'm never going back again. And then, of course, like since 2020, there have been times when I've gone, but they're always just like telling me that I'm freaking fine and like
Yeah.
everything's in my head. So I'm like, I guess they heard my prayer and I'm on my own. They like won't take me. So really, like for me, like when it comes to the Western medicine, it's only like self-enslavement because they want nothing to do with me anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless you get like, you get some terrible trauma, like I got my arm, I put it through a window when I was wrestling, they're really good at that kind of stuff, but any other kind of stuff, it's like,
Yeah.
I
Or
don't
like
know.
if I woke up in the morning and one of my eyeballs was turned all the way inward, I'd go and I would be like, okay, I need to know what this is. Like, give me a CT scan or an MRI. Like, why is my eyeball turned inward? That would be so scary. Like, you have no idea.
Yeah. But then
Or like
you
you couldn't
don't,
speak, or you had
yeah.
a wrist.
But here's the thing, like, I don't know, have you ever heard of Neville Goddard's work?
It sounds so familiar. So remind me.
Feeling is a Secret. So he wrote a book called Feeling is a Secret. He was back in the 60s, probably 50s, 60s, British, I believe, but lived kind of in the East Coast area. talked about like, basically, I'm paraphrasing, but like the power of belief and using your imagination to create your reality. And so if you imagine yourself in a state of like, what if, and you bring that about, and like Brandon and I were talking about this earlier, but if you kind of put yourself in a situation before it even like happens, you're going to manifest that. Because if you're fearing it, that it could potentially happen, then it's going to manifest. But if you use that in a positive way and you imagine the positive for yourself, then that's what you'll bring that. Because the way he talks about that in The Feeling is the Secret is that you use your imagination to put yourself in the state that you want to be and feel what that feels like, and then acknowledge it, and then go on in your life as if there's already a thing. Like, just, you believe it already because it's a thing, because you know it's a thing. It's going to happen. You don't know when, but it's a thing. And I can just tell you an example of it because it happened to me. Before I went to the Barataria Festival, this was some weeks before, maybe some days before, I was getting messages from the universe that I was going to meet my man there, like the man that I'd been asking Source, like, when am I going to meet this man? And universe was telling me this weekend. I kept getting messages, and I'm like, okay, I guess I'm meeting him this weekend. Well, at some point prior to that, prior to knowing that I was going to meet him that weekend, I was listening to something about Neville Goddard, and I was like, okay, I'm going to practice what he says. So I just thought to myself, and mind you, it had been long enough. It had been a long time since I knew what it felt like to be in love. So I was like, I don't even know what that feeling is to bring it back. So what can I imagine in my mind that is even remotely close to that? Just simple. What's the most simple thing? And I was like, okay, I'm going to imagine that I'm in an embrace with my loved one, my love. And then for whatever reason, I just imagined that he lifted me. And I was like, okay, that's nice. And I imagined that. I was like, that's a really nice feeling. I held on to that. And I just, was like, I'm going to meet this man, whoever he is. I don't know when, but I'm going to meet him someday. And I only did it maybe a couple of times, like 2-3 times maybe, that I did that, that exercise in imagination. And this was only like a week or less prior to going to that festival that weekend. Well, I had met somebody on the Barataria Times app 2 years prior. Well, not quite, maybe a year and a half-ish prior. And we'd been friends, but I told him about the festival, and I told him they needed a bass player, and he was a bass player. Ended up that he was part of the band, like I was the vocalist, and he was the bass player. And we had been good friends for like a year and a half, just online, just like friends. But he already had this concept of like, I want to go because I want to meet her and see what we're like in person, right? And in the back of my mind, I too thought about it, but I wasn't trying to write the story of who this man is going to be, right? So I just was like, just going to leave it up to Source, because I had already told Source, give me the best thing you got for me, because I'm not going to pick. I'm not going to write the story. Whenever I pick, well, not whenever, but the last time I picked, it didn't work. So please pick for me. So I get there. I'm in a parking lot. I called him. I'm like, we're at the restaurant. We found a parking spot. Like, when you're at the street, turn here. He turns. I see him, and he like is excited to see me. Rolls his window down, and I'm like, the parking spot's right over there. So he parks. He immediately just gets out of the car, and he comes and he gives me a hug, and then he lifts me. And I was like, God, is that like, are you telling me that this man's coming soon? Like, because I didn't even think it was him. I was just like, maybe it's some other guy. I don't know. But it ended up being him. So I'm
Wow.
just telling you, that's just one example of like how I used that. And I like, how does that happen? Like, how do you explain that?
I don't know, but life is just full of those kinds of experiences, isn't it?
Right.
There's just so many crazy things that you look back and you can't believe things happened that way, and it all happened at the perfect time. Like, I
Yes.
can't believe that I left California, and only like the craziest series of events in the perfect order
Mm-hmm.
would have led me to do that. And I'm so glad I got out of there before 2020. So that's what also blows my mind as well, is just that I definitely wouldn't have like survived being around
Oh, yeah.
my like friends, family, just like the mentality. It's just like been good to be in the middle of nowhere and just doing my thing. So yeah, I guess I manifest. Also, like I said, when I was a kid, I was always afraid that I was going to be homeless somehow, even though I was always a straight A student and very successful with everything that I ever encountered. And that was just the scariest thing that I could imagine, being homeless. And, eventually I had to have my little homeless phase. So I think that also may be an example of your big fear that you will into existence. Because now looking back, even in those moments, it was kind of, I know this is cliche, but it was like the test to see if you were like, had the balls to ask for help, and I failed. Like I just went the homeless route instead of just like making a couple phone calls and being like, yeah. you know
I need help.
like sometimes you just kind of like let things happen, but at the time it really feels like, well, like, you don't understand, like there was no other way, but there
Yeah,
was.
exactly. And what you were saying about the negative thing, when you harp on a negative situation or fear of the future in a negative way, the way I heard it put recently is that like the universe doesn't understand. No, it just understands your feelings. So since you're feeling like the hilarious, cute example I always like to use is when I'm outside with my two lovely black cats that I have, I let them kind of just roam free around the neighborhood. And sometimes I'll be sitting out there in the grass and they'll be gone for a while. And, I could sit there and be like, oh man, did they, get hit by a car? Did all these terrible things happen? And what I found to do is I just would picture my cat running back to me. And then, a few minutes later, my cat would be coming running across the yard instead of trying to create all these terrible scenarios and go over it in my head. And then I would actually get that feeling like Sharon was saying, but just in a negative way. But the universe doesn't understand that. It just gives you what you're basically asking for. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's like a magnet. I think this is in Eileen McCusick's book too, Tuning the Human Biofield, but she talks about like it's energy and it's like a magnet and iron filings. So like you're just the magnet, you're going to attract the iron filings that you're magnetized to. And so if you're living in this negative spirit of like, oh, woe is me, all these bad things are going to happen to me, then that's what you'll attract until you don't.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm so happy with the kind of people that I've been attracting. I feel like a lot of my discomfort in life was that I didn't have like my people. I was just kind of conforming to certain groups, perceived groups that I just like in order to survive. And it's like you go to work Monday through Friday, and I remember being in my mid 20s and being stressed. Like if I don't do something cool on Saturday or Sunday, that's like 1/4 of the month where I like, of like wasting my life away. And now I feel like if I do nothing for like the whole from like Saturday morning to Sunday night, I have really freaking accomplished something. I'm like, bravo to myself. I won.
Yeah, I totally hear you on
Oh,
that
that's
one.
awesome.
I
I
was a
love
Yeah.
4 night a week karaoke at one point, like
How many a week?
4 night a week karaoke.
Wow, girl.
Around the corner from my condo, so I was screwed. And so yeah, that was like a good, I don't know, maybe a good year that I had to like let that play out. And so like my favorite songs, I got tired of singing them. It's so fun. Like you get there at like 6 p.m. and then you have a drink, and then by 2 a.m. you're okay to drive home. Really annoying is when it's football season, because then the karaoke doesn't start till later.
Oh, Football. Oh man, don't get me started.
But see, when I talk about those things, I'm really feeling like I'm looking on a past life. It's like not even me anymore. And
Yeah.
I think about all the people that at the time I was like, I love these people, my family, my karaoke family. Yeah. But those aren't like my people now. They would probably look at what I'm doing and what I'm thinking and say, oh wow, she went off the deep end. She's crazy. It's fine. But like that's like a different dimension. Like that's the Mandela effect, is that if I could slide back into that world and still feel the same warm, fuzzy feelings, you know what I mean? That would be like being able to time travel. But it's just like the moment has passed.
Once you
Kind
see
of
it, you
like
can't unsee it.
right, like a high school reunion, you go back and you're like, oh my gosh, everything I perceived as an adolescent was wrong. Or so
I never
allegedly.
went to mine. I was like,
Me
don't
neither.
want to
That's
go
why I
back.
say allegedly. But it's a cliche in the movies, like where people go to their high school reunion and it's just a nightmare.
Yeah, it's probably weird for sure. I didn't ever go to any of mine.
I don't think I'm eligible because I was sent away as a junior, so I didn't have my senior year in high
Oh,
school.
Got
yeah.
it.
That's what I'm
That's
talking about. I
crazy.
want to be part of the Tartarian narrative in 200 years. There's so much mystery to what happened to me.
That's
Well,
crazy.
I have
Fun.
a question for you that I thought of earlier. Um, it's about the law of one. And I heard one time somebody asked Crow if he'd heard of the law of one, and he said no. He's not. I think he said something about he's not into any of the, I don't know if any of the newer material or something like that. I can't remember what it was. But have you ever heard of the law of one?
I mean, it just sounds like a very general term, like oneness of consciousness, or like what Walter Russell's describes as like the stillness, like how Walter Russell's is like everyone says raise your vibration, but really you have to like lower your vibration to the stillness, or just how we're all in like the aggregate. There's an aggregate consciousness of like of one love source. Like there's many different like ideologies that come to mind when you say that, but you're giving me the impression that it's like a very defined, specific own.
Yeah. Have you heard of channeled work where people get work that's like allegedly channeled and they write it down and they're like talking to like a spirit or like a being from another dimension or whatever? Have you ever heard of anything like
Or
that?
being is speaking through them?
Supposedly that's what Aleister Crowley was doing. He was channeling when he wrote in Hebrew and stuff, and so that the people we were allegedly possibly debunking Crowley as a legit dude because there was people who spoke Hebrew that were like his Hebrew sucks. So what is he channeling a guy who like doesn't know Hebrew that well and they chose like their second language
Oh
to
yeah. I think he
but
was
anyway,
that guy was just a big clown. I feel like you know what it
yeah.
is because everybody hates him. They think he's the enemy, but if he really was the enemy, everyone wouldn't hate him. It's like the mean Mr. Mustache guy. They only burn the like really good ones. That's weird. But anyway, not that I'm saying I'm a fan of his. But so channeled work that we found. So the Law of One is actually a channeled work that was done in the 80s. And they were said to have channeled this being Ra, he called himself. But the interesting thing about it is just the idea of how they laid out the way that consciousness works. And there's different dimensions and it's kind of just like a cycle. And anytime I hear anything that's channeled, I look at it allegorically, kind of like the way I look at the Bible. I'll just try to see what truth I could pick out of there and how it fits into my worldview, my crazy worldview. And this is one that's really cool. And it also gets rid of a lot of victim narrative too. So we could probably send you some links about it, Rev. There's this guy named Aaron Abke that covers it, and he does these short, like 20-minute videos on each one. It's really, really interesting. But basically, it talks about how there's different levels of consciousness and densities. Like you have, rocks have a consciousness, and then like plants, and then animals, and then we're in a realm of our consciousness where we actually have free will. It's the only one with free will. And there's different ways to ascend up. You can actually ascend up the dark way, but it's a lot harder to do that. And then they talk about the next level of consciousness. They don't have free will, so they have to come and aid us, either light or dark. And the coolest thing about it is they asked him how to get rid of like dark entities or demons or whatever. And the Ra said, all you have to do is show them love and light. He's like, you don't have to battle them or fight them. He's like, when you show them love or light, they have to just go away. So
Otherwise,
it
it'll
sounds
polarize them back to the light, and
yeah, and it sounds
they still want to be negative.
yeah, they still want to be negative, so they go away. And it sounds kind of new agey, but when you think about it, it's just showing no fear. And it's literally, if you take the story of Christ, it's just showing your enemy love on one degree. And again, I always talk about how I believe in self-defense on this, physical existence. If you see a crime, you could stop it. You got all your rights. But what I mean is, on the other level, that kind of everything is perfect, I guess that's happening. But I like how they frame it in that way, and it's very interesting. So we can have, or I'm sure Sharon will send you a link.
Yeah, please do. Okay, so I have a friend named Kira who I seriously believe is a shaman. I feel like she went through like whatever the equation is, the cosmic equation for having that kind of spiritual transformation to allow you to be a conduit. Like if anyone is it, it's her. And when you look at her, you want to be like, "Ooh, I want whatever she's on." But it's just her like being, and like she doesn't even, it's almost like even her like facial structure has changed in a way. I mean, maybe I'm the only one that can notice because I've known her since I was 12. But she's in Apache Junction. So you guys like seriously need to connect. And
I'm in Phoenix.
I know, man. Like this is insane. I gotta give you her Instagram. So
Okay.
she channels, and as you were talking about this, I had asked her because we were having like a little meeting together, and she had told me like what she had channeled. She had written it down. And so I asked her to text it to me, and I'm looking at it now, and it says oneness in the channeled message. Do you want me to read it? Or it's just like a paragraph.
Yeah, please do.
Read. Yeah.
Okay, so like I said, she's known me since we were 12, and my middle name is Rose. My real name is Lindsay Rose. So she said Lindsay. So there. So just that's why it says Lindsay. Okay. Lindsay, you have gained knowledge through research, exposing quote unquote truth for all who will listen. Now it is time to be the observer of truth through the knowledge of your heart, which you will receive through us when you begin to silence the mind. This will be your guiding point to bring a new truth into the light. Through observation without judgment, you are opening the doorways to everything and no thing, for there is no absolute truth, and there is only a greater understanding to the oneness in which we come from. By learning to be in the presence of everything, your heart will begin to bloom, and you will find the answers in which you seek. There is no ending, so do not rush this process. It has been an honor to witness this unfolding as we have, and I don't know why, but I start to like think in the voice of the aliens from Toy Story who are talking at the cloud, but like, we have been with you for a very, very long time. Your time is here to reconnect your sacred heart to the consciousness of the I am presence. And then it says, repeat 3 times, I know who I am, I know what I am here, I am here, I am here. What do you guys think? Does it have to do with you guys, what you're vibing with?
Yes,
Oh
100%.
my God. Oh my God.
The law of one is basically like all that, like another consciousness trying to speak to humanity in the 80s and saying all that kind of shit. I love that. You know what that reminds me of? I want to say really quickly is I feel like you got a message from Galadriel, like Galadriel, the elf lady. Like that's one of those messages you get when you stand in front of somebody like a character like that. That's amazing. What a gift.
I'm so grateful, and it's like it just makes me want to cry, the whole story. In fact, I really would love it if you guys like talked to her and interviewed her sometime, like just because now that I've talked to you guys, I can just imagine your energies coming together because what she has been through, and it's such a beautiful, the person that she is just such a shining light. And I just love it when I cross paths with someone with that kind of positivity and excitement, just like a childhood innocence, a childlike innocence, but with a deep wisdom.
Oh, I love it.
Yes, I love that.
That's why we started the show because, well, one of the reasons, there's many, but is because we're able to talk to people who I would pay to talk to some people like this. You know what I mean? And like we get to just do it on a show for other people to also witness, which is amazing. And that's one of the benefits of doing a show. You don't always, sometimes you get to a good level, like look at Crow, he's killing it, which is, amazing. The content is totally worth it, but not all the podcasters are crushing it like that. But this is one of these benefits where we make these friendships and we get kind of like readings. We've had readings from people on the show and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, it's really amazing. But no, she sounds
That
great.
was
We'd love to have
amazing.
her on. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I'd be like, talk to me. What are they saying to me? No.
Why I'm also biting my tongue because I would rather just say nothing more about her and let you connect.
All right,
Uh,
yeah.
Yeah.
but like we
Save the
have a lot
gravy.
of mutual friends that are so awesome. I mean, I feel like what we really need in this community is an official roast. That's how you really know that you've bonded is when you can roast each other, you know?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be
All right,
cool if
man. Can I roast Crow? Because I would love to
All
do
right,
that.
man.
All right,
yeah.
man.
What was it called? Is it called the Friars Club, the famous roasting
Yeah.
club?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, that's a great idea. We should have a roast. I would host it. We could probably even get Owen on board for it.
Oh,
Owen's
well, I
supposed to
mean,
be
how
on
could
our
you
show, but he
forget
hasn't
that?
replied.
Well, don't feel offended by that.
No,
Don't, I
I
mean,
don't feel
it's
offended at all.
personal.
We're not. We're
Like,
not. We know he's busy.
well, exactly. Like, just don't take it personally at all.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, no,
No, we
no.
don't. We
I
talk about that
listen,
on
I
the show,
totally
not to
get
take
it.
anything personally.
I've met some like super I got to drive around Tommy Lee from Motley Crue for like a day and a half. So I know what it's like when you're like I'm not saying he's that, but when people are uber famous, like their life is just insane. It's like, yeah, I love it. I just wanted to also brag about my fun night that I had.
Nice. My I've had some like really like weird crazy nights, and that's another thing about the belief and the Mandela and childhood about like the formative brain. I have a funny misremembering. Like I actually like have this memory that didn't happen, and it wasn't until I was 10 years old that I realized because I was talking to my aunt, I was about to like remind her about this thing that happened, and as I'm saying it, I'm like, oh my goodness, that can't be true. And it was that ever since I was like 5 or 6, I don't know how this happened. I was watching TV, or I know that my mom was dating a guy that was really like Michael Jackson, but I just thought that I had this memory of being on a stage with Michael Jackson. And I like had
Wow.
told my friends about it a couple times, I think, just in passing. And then like I was bringing it up like halfway to my aunt, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that like can't even be true. Like, there's just no way I was ever like on a stage with Michael Jackson when I was 5." And it wasn't even like the older version of him. It's like the version from like the 80s. So it's like, isn't that weird? And it's
That's
just like,
hilarious.
Well, that's the reason I also think that some of the things with the Mandela effect are mostly just like you were saying, misremembering things. Because how often do we, like in our own memories about our own lives, forget something that happened or remember it very differently? So many people will go back to the house where they grew up and they look at it and they're like, it looks different. It looks smaller. It felt so big when I lived here. It's like, well, you were like smaller too. Like you were like really small, like, so like people just misremember things. They, maybe they make them grandiose and they make them bigger or better or more beautiful. And it's like that, or like hearing an old song that you're like, oh, I used to love that song. And you hear it again, you're like, doesn't quite sound the same. Like I imagined it was better than that. Or like
yeah.
tasting an old ice cream. You're like, oh, I used to love this ice cream. You go back to that place and you try it and you're like, not as good as I remember. It's like, it's
Choco Taco.
Yeah,
huh?
Choco Taco. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. The
Taco
Choco
just tastes like poison to me. I mean, the last time I tried a Choco Taco, I was like, oh, I can't enjoy this anymore.
Yeah, people said they were going away, and I'm like, good, like, good riddance.
Yeah, good.
Uh, yeah. What was that? I was gonna say something. What were you talking about again?
About misremembering
Oh
things.
yeah. So
Stop being offended.
what's that?
How I love roasts because
Oh
like we're
yeah.
looking at the age of people being offended, but then now we went to the Mandela effect. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say. So no, really quickly though, as Sharon was talking about with misremembering, so if you take as above, so below. So could it be that the or the collective consciousness can also misremember something in that same way because of
Yes.
maybe because I think what happens is it's like a blind spot, like Sharon said, you're younger, so you have this blind spot. It's, but there's other blind spots that might exist that maybe the whole society doesn't know about that they have because of some trauma that might have occurred a couple thousand years ago and it gets passed down. Like people like Michael Tessarion talk about this stuff. There could be like a collective wound that because of it, we have this blind spot. And then he doesn't go as far as me with the realm earth stuff, but because of the realm earth, maybe it affects the realm in that way because everybody believes it or misbelieves it or misremembers or something.
Yeah, I don't know why. I hope that this isn't too far off from what you're talking about, because what you're explaining reminds me of like how people have little totems, like a cross, like people holding a cross and praying with the cross, or some people have a crystal, or maybe somebody just has like a picture of Jesus or Buddha on the wall in front of them. And it's like their appreciation and reverence for that object gives it power, and then it becomes like an exchange, like a battery, and you're magnifying it. And then so if everybody else is doing that with the same object, then I think that would probably give even more power to that object. Yeah. So like, I know this is like a touchy subject, but let's just, because everybody knows it, the example of Jesus, there's the debate of between people who think that he was a real guy, and then the people who think that it's just a metaphor, whether it's a metaphor for the sky clock or a metaphor for morality. And I like to think that we're living in that as above, so below fractal environment where it seriously could be both, and nobody should be triggered by either.
Exactly.
Dude, I say that all the time.
Page. Like, could it be? Totally. We don't know.
We don't know. And of course, the story
either or both. I'm totally cool with it being either or both. And so I'll just like blanket statement, just be like all of the ideas of the Christ consciousness. Like, if I could act like that guy did in that story, it's way better than I am right now. So why not just strive? It just like any metaphor would. And then if it is real, and like just to like get this out really quickly,
the whole I'm getting chills.
My stepmom is like famous enough to be like so busy that even I will like text her and she'll be like, hey, can you not text me right now because I'm taping with my phone? You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, sorry. Or something like that. You know, like she was on the Hallmark Channel for 10 years on a show called Home and Family. And then now, because that show died because of all the quote unquote nonsense, she is now doing the Great American Community app, which is seemingly like a very Republican-y, Christian-y type thing. And so I just always thought to myself, oh, if only I could have grabbled her to join like the Beartaria community and Ladle TV. It's like seriously all that she is truly about. But it's so funny because with this app, A Great American Community, in order to watch her content, I have to sit through a Dairy Queen commercial, which is basically zooming in on fried chicken. I'm like, this is hilarious. Seriously.
Oh, you're making me hungry. What are you doing? Next you're going to say watermelon. Next you're going to be, we got some watermelons. All right. This is a comedy show. We got to. That's amazing you said that about both, though. Like, I just want to go back because I really got chills because I was thinking I was going to say that. Like, what if it's both? But then you said it. And what I like to say to people, too, is like, you know, we get this story through Christianity. It probably didn't happen that way, but it's totally possible all those things happened, you know, and we just get the grabbled version of it, just like history. The same thing, like the Civil War happened. Is it what they told you in school? No, allegedly, probably not. You know, like
definitely
the same
not.
kind of thing.
He told me that it was about slavery and freeing the Black people. And it is just, now I know for a fact that just is totally not exactly what was going on politically. There's so much more to the story. And so if anybody out there didn't know that, there's...
And what if the natives are Black people, right? What about that whole crazy thing?
And white. And some white too. Everyone was already mixing around before.
Exactly. And slaves are more like what Owen Benjamin talks about with the Builder Buddy program. You know, that's what slavery was, you know, I think. And this people I've listened to that read these old books, they said that's what it was like. Like if somebody was whipping their slaves, the neighborhood would get together and like lynch that person. You know what I mean? It was like it was just like Owen says, you know, like they're finding that in the books. It's hilarious.
That's awesome.
There's so many ways that we are enslaving ourselves, like the whole fashion thing. Like I remember, you know, Owen Benjamin has been talking about Kanye West, and I've just been thinking about how he's a fashion designer and everything, and how in high school I would, you know, spend a lot of my money on clothing. And so like every like month that goes by that I'm not spending hundreds of dollars on like jeans that have rips in them, I feel so rich. Like, think about all of the expenses. Like, I don't get my eyebrows waxed like I did 20 years ago. This
Dude,
is all incredible savings. Could not be
You don't
richer.
get your nails did, girl? I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
all of the things that I'm free from enslaving to. Like, I've never dyed my hair, and my best friend's a hairstylist, and it's really hard to go back if you've been dyeing your hair for a decade. So I like the way, like, these are like my Jew goggles. I like, ooh, I love all like the things that I'm not brainwashed by, you know. It's savings every single day. Except then you're buying the organic food and it all evens out. So
Yeah, it does. You just spend it in a different way, in a better way, dare we say.
I know, like, tipping content creators on Rockfin, it's an addiction. It's like my little, like, what's it called? My slot machine.
oh yeah. Oh, that's amazing.
Cha-ching.
Yeah, except you're not expecting anything in return, so I shouldn't call it a slot machine, but it's gratifying like a game. So I really should call it like a video game. It is. It is a video game to me. That's my video game, is streaming and clicking the red button.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great that you give back like that. Yeah, this community that's building and sprouting up is really amazing. And just the people that are out there, there's just so much good content. It's really amazing. It makes me look forward to the future. Like, a lot of people have this grim thing that they think is going to happen, and it's going to, even like Fortune Saint Germain, when he talks about, and I fully believe what he's saying is true, like the elites and all their plans and the stuff. But I think that you could, what's happening right now, and I think it started majorly in 2020, is there's this split. And I think that there's just going to be another, maybe underground or whatever it is, that are just not going to participate, because I really feel at the end of the day, all these pranks that they're pulling on us, all these things that they do, Agenda 2030, all these crazy things, it's all a choice we have to make. We have to choose to go along with it. And since we're seeing people like, Owen Benjamin, like Crrow, all these people, Tom Barnett comes to mind because I just watched that stream with him. Shout out to Pat Life when he had Owen, Barnett, and Topher Gardner on. Yeah, that was a good one. But yeah, it's really did I lose I think I might have, where was I going? I'm so bad at
all these people who put together this good content, and what's going to happen, like people proposing that everything's going to hell in a handbasket.
Oh yeah, that's what it was. This split. That's where I got lost. So I think there's this split that's going on, and people are, especially because, like, going back what we talk about with Realm Earth and stuff, they're really starting to see it, and they could believe it because they see people like Owen. And that's why I brought up all those people. They see the inspiration, they see it's possible, and they realize that they don't have to, like, wear a mask. And I think how many people didn't wear a mask because of, like, Crrow and Owen and all these people, or didn't even engage in the experimental medical serum. That's what we like to call it here on the Oversharing Show. Because of that, and I've heard the letters, it's great. And I was even at last year, 2021, I was at like a Bears giving, and there's a really good group of people there. And I could tell it was like a healing event, because people realized that they weren't crazy and they weren't alone. Because up here in Connecticut, it's like California, probably. It got nuts. Like, I would be the only person in the grocery store without a mask, and I had several confrontations, but I learned to make it really funny. But like I said, I'm really starting to see the split happening. So I think it's good to be aware of what may be coming, and aware of, like, how you can distance yourself and get away from it. But I don't think it's anything to be feared at all. I only see, like, really great things happening.
Yeah. And again, if we, do the fear thing, then we draw it to ourselves. So, like, I just don't participate. I don't keep my mind on those things. I'm always on other topics, on other things, so.
Yeah. I was going to go in so many directions with that. This has been such a great conversation, going like all the most important topics.
Yeah. I've loved
There's
it.
Kanye again. Like, it's tripping me out that Owen Benjamin is talking to him and saying that, like, all these good things are going to happen, because it just, like, I wrote an email to him and I'm saying, Owen, if everything you're saying about Kanye is correct, then I guess I was just wrong about a lot of different things, and I have to just admit that I made a mistake, because I just, like I said before, like, default billionaire, A-list celebrity.
Yeah.
point of no return. Even someone like Alex Jones. Oh, Kitty. Oh, yeah, I have 4 black cats, by the way. That was another thing from the past that I didn't ask.
Oh, amazing. This is Snickers.
Hilarious.
Hello, Snickers. Now I forgot what I was going with that. But
Yeah,
yeah,
you were talking about Kanye.
it's good to know that there's hope, and that like maybe I just hope that somehow we can drive these people with massive audiences coming out of Hollywood and they're to these bodies of information that started from when you started, like 2014. There's been so much great information that it's just so hard to find now the information that led us to aggregate it together. Like I can't find any good JFK footage anymore.
Unless you're looking for Lem.
Yeah, look for Lem.
Okay.
his boyfriend, or allegedly, or whatever,
who lived in the White House with him too, right?
Yeah. No, I love what you're saying. Totally. I feel like that's why all this fear porn came out with the truther stuff, is because I feel like the they or the them or whatever kind of knew this was happening and it was going to happen, and they're just either gave it their best shot, or our other theories, maybe they're doing it on purpose to, like, kind of like what James True talks about with the when he talks about the idea of like the trickster or whatever, or the I forget what he calls it. Oh, the clowns, whatever he calls them. He thinks the they and the them, they're not really evil. They're just trying to wake us up. Yeah, the merry pranksters, or some of them, or whatever. But yeah. So what was I?
That maybe they're doing this to wake us up.
Sharon, you're an angel. Yes, that was it. But there was something right before that I was going to say. That's where I got lost in the whole waking up thing. It'll come back to me.
Maybe the Loki.
It was right before that. But see, what happens is sometimes I paint these mental pictures in my head when I keep talking, and I get so enamored, and I'm like,
maybe if I respond, it'll come back.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, yeah, it'll come back. Go ahead.
The idea of the breakaway society is maybe what you were trying to, something to do with that, because I think that people look at that as a bad thing, where half of the people are going to go into the metaverse and just be like a pod, a la Matrix, literally, and then the other of us is just going to be like Toontown, basically, like la la la, the sun, we are happy, But I don't think it has to be that black and white. But it doesn't have to be like Terminator Skynet took over. I just think that people are more finding their people, and they're going to create their own networks of businesses, products, entertainment, and it'll just be more decentralized. And actually, that's what I'm going to put out there, because I hope that's what happens, because people should be free to think and believe and live however they want. And I know that there's so much diversity out there that it seems like the only way to move forward with human consciousness evolving is if we're able to do that. If we can separate from the things that we might perceive as evil, because there's so many different perspectives. Like, can multiple ones be right if you believe in objective reality? I believe in objective reality, but I think there's a lot of situational things, like Seinfeld-esque situations, that aren't like written on any like moral compass. It's like, do I take the last cookie from the cookie jar is a kind of a gray area. So if cookie jars matter to a certain people, don't, when you're in their territory, don't mess with their cookie jar ritual,
Good point.
I love how you put it that way.
Not because you're going to go to hell, but in this life you might get beat up.
It's a social construct. It's whatever social construct you're in. So like you said, if there's a group of people that don't want you to take the last cookie from the cookie jar, then don't do it.
Yeah.
If you don't want them to hurt you or something.
Better not take my cookie.
Needs to become a fossil or something. Like some people, like it's like the sword and the stone, where it's like the cookie gets really hard, and then the oldest man who could bite into the cookie wins the day.
Yeah, exactly. I love the cookie references. You're making me hungry again. No, I actually remember what I was going to say too. And I'm glad you brought that up, and this reminded me what I was going to say, which was, I think that I was talking about the fear porn, right? Agenda 2030, all these things, because I feel like the they and the them, whatever, whoever it is, saw this awakening maybe coming. And I think the way it could come is, how they say there's like a tipping point in society for different things, like a certain amount of people have to believe something, and then it kind of just flips after a while. So I have a feeling that something like that's going to happen. And other people talked about it, like Owen Benjamin talked about it, about a
A
script
script flip?
flipped coming. That's kind of his way to describe it. But I think it is possible. And something like Kanye West, because I felt exactly the same way. I'm like, oh, he's a chill. He's just saying this stuff. But then after seeing what he talked about and hearing what Owen said about him, I'm really like excited about it, because think of the message now that's going to reach so many more people because of this. And this could be the leading edge of one of these things where it flips. And I'm sure, in the mainstream, they'll find some idol to get people behind like they did with the Orange Man. But I think it's really going to also boost the other, breakaway community or whatever. It's going to be a really good shot, because I think there's a lot of people on the edge that, somebody like Kanye West says these things are, because I've been playing Kanye West at weddings still all the times just to see the reaction. And I played it at a wedding where we did the hora, because like the bride was like either half Jewish or something like that. So we still did the hora and all this stuff. But I played Kanye and they went nuts. And I was like, yes, this was just like, I don't want to say when, but recently.
All
So I
right, well,
was,
you gotta send me a link to him because I still to this day have no idea what his music sounds like, and I had no idea that like he was anything noteworthy until recently. So bring me up to date. Like I still don't even like know a Lady Gaga song. So
yeah, we
That's
can
any
send you some
hilarious.
stuff.
recommendations? Because I haven't been to a wedding. I guess the last wedding I went to was in the fall of 2019, and I don't remember any of the music that they played. Huh.
Maybe Gold Digger. They might have played that song with Jamie Foxx. That's a song Kanye did. That was pretty popular.
That's funny.
When
Yeah.
I hear it, then maybe I'll say, "Oh, I have heard this
Yeah.
before."
I can probably tell you that I tell everybody I grew up under a rock and I stay under that rock most of the time,
Yeah.
that I don't think I know a Kanye song either.
Okay, so we're together. We have so much in common. I love it.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Sharon also has
Sure.
never seen any movie really. Like maybe,
Hardly.
yeah.
What
I
about the
don't see a
80s
lot
and
of
90s though?
Huh?
The 80s and 90s, not even?
I mean, some, but very few. There's very few that I will be like, oh yeah, I know that one.
Ooh, that's good. Your brain is pure because I'm totally polluted by the 80s and 90s, and all of my ignorance of after the 90s does not make up for it. I just like my brain works in quoting old movies. It's crazy.
Yep.
Like
A lot
like
of people do.
thinking and laugh at something, and because I'll be reminded of some weird nostalgia programming and like really gory negative movies too, they propped up at those times. And I think I used to justify it because I'm like, well, we're watching the evolution of special effects. Look how real Saving Private Ryan was. Oh, you gotta see how real it was. Like, oh, this I'm so cool because I saw this. Now I know exactly what that would have been like, according to them at that time on all of the talk shows.
Yeah. Well, I'm
Well,
still, the carnage was real enough. Yeah. That's some crazy programming.
I quote silly movies that I watched, like Austin Powers and Deuce Bigelow, and
Yeah.
just
It's
really
been healing to have a show with Sharon, because I'll want to make these movie references, but she won't get a lot of them. So it's crazy. It's like actually healing. And I think that's why the dynamic is so well too, because it's like we always say Sharon grew up under a rock and I say I grew up under a crack rock. Not that anybody smoked crack around me. It's just a funny joke, but it was pretty crazy.
Yeah. Well, that's like the same little balance between Jason and I, because although
Aw.
Jason was around all of the partying and the stuff because he's a musician, so he's seen it all. He's not really like a partier, and I'm like more crazy and extroverted, and I've, seen some crazy things, but hopefully I can introduce Jason to some crazy things. I want to take him to the UK and visit Fortune de Saint Germain. That,
You guys need to do that.
yes.
That will be so awesome.
I would walk to where Fortune Day Saint Germain was if I could. I'd take a log and swim it across the ocean. I mean, like, yeah, I'd be like, I want to
Like,
have a conversation with you, because
and you
I hear
do.
him, and I mean, you hear the stuff
He's
we're talking
awesome.
about, Rose, right? Like, can you just imagine having a conversation with some of those ideas? Like that would be crazy, I think. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm so lucky that I get to have those talks with him. And I've had some good experiences where I keep, sometimes I'll just be like, well, maybe you're the real Saint Germain and you're the real one. And he's like, no. And he explains to me that the original Saint Germain never had sex. I'm like, really? Not even like through puberty? Like not even like the natural urges of a human being? And he's like, no, like it was like his last time around. And he was just like focusing on other things. And some people just aren't like that. And Fortune has a son, so we know that he's not like the original Saint Germain in that way. But it's like, it's so true. What do you do? Do I say like, hey, I'm looking at flights and I'll be in Heathrow at this time. Maybe we should meet. Or do I just like say like, hey, I'm in Heathrow. Want to hang out? These are the real philosophical
those are deep
dilemmas.
philosophical thoughts.
I would
Yeah.
say like as the elves say, we don't like to give advice anymore, but what I would say to that is, depending on his schedule, I think it would be great to just show up, or depending on how long you're going to be there. But if you're not going to be there for a long time, maybe ahead of time just to make sure he can give you time. But I love the idea of surprise bombing him. That's great.
I don't think that would work. I think he's too busy, but it's fun
Yeah.
to think about though. It really is fun. I like it, it's see, like usually I can't reach people's doorbells. And so just the idea of surprising anyone is like, ooh, what a fantasy. Fortune's doorbell is probably like really like complicated. It's probably like one of those, what is it called? Those machines where like one ball like falls down and hits another ball.
Oh, really?
There's like a mouse that runs the cheese, eats the cheese, and then the knife falls. Yeah, like Tom and Jerry. Or
I was thinking like one of those knocks where you like lift it and you tick, 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 knock on the door.
He uses the phrase getting his house ready for the day. And so, as you can imagine, with my imagination, I think of all of these like metaphorical things. Like, I'm thinking of him like starting the fire and like throwing like eggs into it and being like, is that a nice breakfast for you, fire? Opening the windows and letting the windows in and just like talking to the house and getting it ready. But like, what really does getting the house ready mean? It's probably just a very old house in London that needs like the heater turned on a certain way or like reset, something rebooted, some kind of ancient royal technology we're unaware of, ignited.
with that giant diamond, allegedly.
That's it. Right. He needs to get his jewelry ready for the day. It's like Beauty and the Beast. They're all alive and dancing around until he wakes up.
All his crystals.
My hands are starting to rub now. Uh-oh.
Well, what's interesting is that if you were able to put the Philosopher's Stone on your finger, it really depends on your spiritual journey on whether you would actually feel something. I think it would have an effect on anyone no matter what, if everything they say about it is true. But in terms of actually feeling something, like some people can actually like we were talking about our interfacing with the spiritual realm. Well, here in the physical realm, even people have different experiences with crystals in how they feel it. So someone who's very in tune with the spiritual realm might feel like a binaural beat coming off of the Philosopher's Stone, where someone who's just like drooling in front of their television all day may not even notice when he's like walking around town.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And that reminds me of this crazy story when I was in Sedona with Sharon and a bunch of people. We went to a crystal store and we were there around the closing time. And one of the fathers of the girls, I guess, that worked there, he was standing around hanging out, and he was a miner. And he looked like a miner, like he had the get up on and everything. And he had this old weathered face, you know, and we're talking to him and he pulls this thing out and he said it was a meteorite that fell from the sky. And we'll send you, we've showed on the Over Sharon show before, but we'll send you the video of it. It looks like like a runic thing. It's like round. It looks like it has like tree shapes in it and stuff. It's really amazing. And I think that there are certain rocks or stones or whatever they are that have this connection to like the spiritual realm or whatever. Yeah, it's amazing. I did Philosopher's Stone. That'd be, if you get to touch that, I'm going to be like, must be nice and so much. I'm like, oh, must be nice.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't have even brought it up.
Uh-oh. We'll
Jinx
edit that out. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't want to jinx it, but we were talking about having positive thoughts and trying to will into existence. And it's really not about the Philosopher's Stone.
It's
I just think that Fortune is a lovely man and I just want to hang out with him.
Of
And I
totally.
course.
honestly just want Jason to like have the experience of like seeing someone eat beans on toast and have that be totally normal. And like, you know, fish and chips in a pub where it's snooker instead of billiards, just those little things.
And
Aw.
imagine getting to do a podcast in person with somebody, not even like maybe Fortune, but like just even you guys doing one or something, because there's so many that aren't in person anymore, you know, and especially in a foreign location like that. I think that'd be amazing.
Mark Devlin would be a good one. Did you ever catch any of his work?
It sounds really familiar. I'm pretty sure I have.
Musical Truth. So, Mark Devlin, he's one of the presenters that I met in 2016 at the Free Your Mind conference, which I went to because of Mark Passio. So, it's that group of people that were all hanging out at that time period, like Bob Tuskin and Larkin Rose, and just a lot of anarchists that then like moved on to become involved with the anarcho-polko, anarcho-capitalist crypto uh, movement. Wait, why did I bring that up? Now it's my turn to forget what I was talking about, I guess.
Oh, it must be nice.
Some guy that Brandon must know
Oh,
about.
Mark Devlin. So I got to hang out with him like every year, 2016, 2017, 2018. We drove to Arizona and Mark Devlin went to Arizona for a conference. So I got to see him then. And then in 2019, Mark Devlin went to Shoot the Moon, New York, which we did, which was around the corner from Event 201, which I could say, I wish we could say that like we knew that was happening, that it was just a coincidence. I
Wow.
know. And so Shoot the Moon 2019 was around the corner from Event 201 that weekend. And Mark Devlin was there. And then, of course, because of all the nonsense, I haven't seen him since. But what he goes into is the basically, in a nutshell, and it doesn't do it justice, is continuing the work of David McGowan on all of the Laurel Canyon 60s social engineering that occurred, that I'm positive that over these years, you guys know all this information, and I guarantee that it all stemmed from David McGowan's work, and he passed away of cancer suddenly. So it's a good thing that everyone has been moving it forward and commenting on it in their own way, and like bringing up the fact that Jim Morrison's dad was the dude who started the Vietnam War. Those kinds of obvious things, like you're probably like, well, why is she assuming that I know what she says I know? But that's like an example. Like I know you know that, right?
Oh, I've
So
told so many people that.
exactly. So Mark Devlin, he's done 3 amazing books and he is a DJ. So you would just freaking love him. And he specializes in Black music. And I love how he says it is really English Manchester accent, because he really is like an expert in like English Black music. And he just is just a wealth of knowledge. And also he can do different accents from all over London. So I vibe with that because I think he might have the same genetic mutation that causes people to speak in different accents against their control.
I love that.
Do it. You
I
got
love
it.
accents.
Musical Truth, Volume 1, 2, and 3. And then on Crrow777 Radio, the first episode he did was on the punk rock, the history of punk rock, which was episode 179.
Wow.
And then he came back more recently too. So episode
Yeah, I've heard.
432. It had to be episode 432, obviously, that was Mark Devlin.
Oh, wow. And we started this at 4:32 p.m. Arizona time.
Oh my gosh, time flies by. You guys are great to talk to. I'll
Yeah.
talk to you sometime.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah,
I
we
guess
had a
that would
great
be a good
time.
place to wrap it up. We might as well. I mean, I could
Yeah.
talk for hours, but you know, there's
Yeah,
things we
I'm
got to
hungry. I'm
do.
gonna fix cookies.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, thank you, Rose, so much. This has really been, like I said, I got chills at one point. You
I
know,
just saw 6:44:44.
oh yeah, it says 8:44 here. Uh-oh. So yeah, I'm really grateful for having you on. I'm glad that Sharon was able to put this together. The lovely Sharon of the Over Sharon Show. So Rose, why don't you tell people where they could find you?
Well, I really do work behind the scenes. I've been taken off YouTube because I'm not as smart as the great Crrow777, who's very good with being underground and watching what he says. I'm kind of a blabbermouth, and so I'm off the mic. But you can find my work and my whole everything that I do all day long, every day, 24/7 is work for Crrow777Radio.com. CRROW 777radio.com. And also, I do some streams on Rockfin, and I can just say that if you already are a fan of Crrow777 Radio, just don't expect the wisdom and
Oh,
maturity.
how dare you?
I am trying to like be more
Trying
to grow in the spiritual realm, and he's an incredible influence on me, but I've got like, a couple decades of practice. So I gotta goof off with people. So if you ever wanted to like see a previous guest that you saw in Crrow777 kind of loosen up a little bit, maybe it's on my Rockfin channel.
Ooh, that sounds amazing. So how do they find you on Rockfin?
Rose of Crrow777.
All right, awesome.
Or Rose777. I think there's like @ Rose of Crrow777, but you could also find me by just searching Rose777.
All right, we will be sure to put those links in the episode below when it premieres. Anyone listening to this for the first time, you can find more of Over Sharon if you go to morelawsmoreproblems.com, my website that's about to be 10 years old because that's how long I've been blogging and doing all the stuff about it. But if you go to the Over Sharon tab, you can find everything you want about Over Sharon. You can donate there to us. You can also learn our schedules. You can listen to our audio podcast, which we have on Podbean. Therefore, puts it on Apple Music and all the big ones, Spotify, so
Amazon.
Yeah, so check that out. And yeah, shout out to the chat, by the way. We always have a chat going when we premiere these. So thank you guys so much for hanging around, especially all the way to the end, because that's the best way you could support us here at the Over Sharon Show is to just show up when we have premieres. And if you can't do that, comment. Like, share it around, but don't, like we say, don't woke rape. Only share it with people that you think are gonna dig it, because we have a very niche, unique audience that we love. So, but yeah, Sharon, anything else you want to say?
I'm good. That was awesome. I really enjoyed that. Really good.
All right, well, thank you, Rose, so much again. And what do we say to the good people, Sharon?
That if you're not over Sharon,
then you're totally not Karen.
That's right.
So keep over Sharon. See you guys next week.